a shipwright's bastard, born in a Driftmark dockyard with no name worth carving in stone. A dead man's dragon, riderless for years, that should have burned him where he stood. Instead, it bowed, and the boy who had nothing flew into a war that called him traitor before he ever drew a sword. He died proving them wrong, and they wrote one word above his bones. Welcome to Westeros Within, where we journey into forgotten ages, hidden legends, and ancient mysteries. This is Mysteries of the Realm. Episode Branded a Traitor, the Dragonseed who died proving them wrong. 15. Today we go looking for a Dragonseed in the wreckage of the Dance of the Dragons, a bastard whose own mother could not settle who his father was. A knight branded a turncloak by a frightened queen, and a death that answered the question the living never could. Two mysteries hang on this man, one about his blood, one about his loyalty, and the sources cannot agree on either. They called him Addam of Hull. Born in the year 114 after the conquest in a town on the island of Driftmark, the seat of House Velaryon. His younger brother, Alan, came a year after. Their mother was Merilda of Hull, a shipwright's daughter, a trader and a ship's captain who sailed a humble cog called the Mouse, and who carried that same name herself, the Mouse. She was 16 years old when Addam was born, and barely 18 when Alan followed. The boys grew up in their grandfather's shipyard, hammering hulls and hauling line for the Velaryon fleet. Low-born work, in calloused hands. And yet, no man who looked at them doubted what they were. Both had hair of pale silver and eyes of deep purple, the unmistakable mark of the dragon's blood, sewn into a sailmaker's grandsons. They were dragonseeds, Valyrian bastards. The only question was whose, because here is the strange shape of Addam's whole life. Twice, the realm asked a simple question about him, and twice, the answer it wrote down was the one most convenient to the man who wrote it. Who was his father? And when the war came, was he loyal or was he false? Two questions. One man. Let us see how far the evidence will carry us, and where, in the end, it leaves us standing in the dark. Start with the blood, because everything that follows hangs on it. His mother named the father plainly. She always did. Ser Addam Velaryon, the son and heir of old Lord Corlys, the sea snake himself. And the claim was not idle, because the boys were said to resemble the man, and they carried the silver and the purple of his line. Listen first to why that answer holds. Merilda is the one person in all the world who indisputably knew. A mother naming the father is the closest thing to first-hand testimony the histories ever offer. Every rival account is a guess made by someone who was not in the room. And the blood fits Lenore exactly. He was the grandson of Princess Rhaenys, the great-grandson of old King Jaehaerys, Valyrian to the marrow, the silver hair, the purple eyes. Lenore's paternity explains them without reaching for anything stranger. And then there is the dragon, Seasmoke, a pale silver-gray beast that had been Laenor Velaryon's own mount and had flown riderless for years after Laenor died. When that masterless dragon, of all the dragons on Driftmark, accepted Addam, some have called it the dead rider's son coming home to his father's dragon, as though the blood itself recognized the boy. The two most respectable chroniclers of the age, Grandmaster Muncan and Septon Eustace, are said to have accepted Merilda's account. Against them stands only one dissenting voice, and it belongs to a fool. And yet, the claim has a problem at its very heart. Ser Addam Velaryon was known, by every account, to prefer the company of men, and to show little interest in women. That such a man should father not one son, but two, on the same woman, in 2 consecutive years, that strains belief more than a little. It is the single strongest crack in his mother's story. And so the fool steps forward. Mushroom, the court jester, tells it differently in his testimony. He says the father was not Laenor at all. It was Laenor's own father, Lord Corlys Velaryon, the sea snake, a seafarer and a shipbuilder, and a frequent visitor to the very Driftmark shipyards where Merilda worked. By Mushroom's account, Corlys kept the boys unacknowledged and far from court for one reason: to avoid the wrath of his fierce and fiery wife, the Princess Rhaenys Targaryen. Now, Mushroom is the least trustworthy witness in all these histories. Salacious, scurrilous, dismissed by serious men as a matter of habit. But weigh what this account explains that the other cannot. It explains the opportunity. Corlys the shipbuilder, not Laenor, was the man forever among those docks. It explains why the silver and purple prove nothing about which Velaryon, since father and son shared the very same Valyrian look. And above all, it explains what came after. Because consider how Corlys behaved toward these 2 bastard boys. He petitioned the queen to strip the taint of bastardy from them. He had Addam legitimized and named him his heir to Driftmark. He called them, to a hostile council, true Velaryons. And when the crown moved against Addam, Corlys warned him in time to flee. And for that warning, the old sea snake was beaten and thrown into a black cell. A great lord ruining himself to shield 2 dockyard boys. Some read that as a father protecting his own sons, not a grandfather protecting his dead son's bastards. But be honest about the thread. The whole Corlys account rests on Mushroom, and on Mushroom alone. To believe it, you must assume that Merilda, the one witness with true knowledge, lied. Perhaps to flatter herself. Perhaps to shield the family. And there is a simpler reading of Corlys's devotion that needs no scandal at all. If the boys were Laenor's, they were the last male blood of the sea snake's own dead son. Motive enough for a dynast with no other heirs to risk everything. So which is it? Archmaester Gildan, who compiles all of this, declines to rule. He records only that Addam's true parentage remains a matter of dispute among the historians to this very day. And for now, so will we. Because the question of his blood was never settled, and it was the question of his loyalty that cost him his life. When the Dance of the Dragons came, Rhaenyra's cause needed riders for her masterless dragons. They gathered the dragonseeds of Dragonstone for a desperate, bloody ritual the Maesters called the Sowing of the Seeds, and others, for the dead it left behind, the Red Sowing. Most who tried were burned or torn apart. Addam was not. Seasmoke spread his pale gray wings and took him into the sky. He pledged his fealty to the queen, and she rewarded him richly. Addam of Hull, bastard and dragonseed, became Ser Addam Velaryon, knight, dragon rider, heir to Driftmark, and then 2 other men of his exact kind set the whole realm against him. At the first battle of Tumbleton, 2 dragonseed riders, Hugh Hammer upon Vermithor and Ulf White upon Silverwing, turned their cloaks and went over to the Greens. History remembers them as the 2 betrayers, and their treachery poisoned the well for every dragonseed who remained. So here is the second question, and it is sharper than the first. Was Rhaenyra right to fear Ser Addam? Take the case against him seriously, because it is not nothing. Of the 4 dragonseeds raised up in the sowing, the 2 most like him, low-born bastards handed dragons, exactly as he had been, had just betrayed her on the field. A queen reasoning from cold evidence had a fresh and bloody pattern before her. The council's ugly verdict that bastards are treacherous by nature reads as pure bigotry now. But it had been confirmed in real time by two bastards, and Addam's own patron, Corlys, would soon defy a royal arrest order to spirit him away. Which is to say, the man was embedded in a faction willing to conspire against the crown's command. And when the gold cloaks came for him, when Sir Luther Largent climbed to the dragon pit with 20 men to make the arrest, Addam did not submit, did not plead, did not trust the Queen's justice. Seasmoke spread his pale gray wings, smoke rising from his nostrils, and he fled. He took himself and a war dragon clean out of Rhaenyra's host. Flight is the classic act of a guilty man. And yet, watch what he did next. Because treason is measured in deeds, and his deeds point the other way entirely. A true defector turns his dragon against the Queen, as Hugh and Ulf had done. Addam did the precise opposite, branded a turncloak, with a dragon under him and the whole world open. He flew to Tumbleton in the dark to attack the Greens, to prove his loyalty by destroying the very two betrayers who had ruined his name. His fire burned their camps and the town, and in the smoke and the mud, he broke off from a lesser dragon to hurl himself at the greatest threat on the field, the monstrous, riderless Vermithor. The three beasts tore at one another, and in the end, Vermithor locked his teeth into Seasmoke's neck and ripped his head from his body. Addam died with his dragon, the accused turncloak, who had saved King's Landing from the Queen's foes at the cost of his own life. And consider what his flight had already cost her. By driving him off, Rhaenyra lost a dragon, a rider, and her hand all at once. For Corlys went to a black cell, and when it was known the sea snake languished in chains, his men abandoned her cause by the hundreds. Her suspicion did not protect her. It gutted her. But the doubt does not vanish so easily. A skeptic can grant every deed and still ask the colder question. Was that night attack loyalty to Rhaenyra? Or a stateless man, condemned and cornered, trying desperately to buy back his own honor? He had already fled the Queen. She had tried to seize him. He owed her nothing. Clearing his name and avenging his imprisoned patron would look exactly the same, from the outside, as fidelity. And here the sources fail us in the way they always do. We have Addam's actions. We never have his heart. Loyalty and self-vindication produce the identical deed. And even the famous verdict on his tomb is not neutral. The single word, loyal, was carved by his own brother, by Addam Velaryon, by then the Lord of the Tides, with every reason in the world to scrub the word turncloak from his house's name. A self-interested sibling's memorial proves what Aelin wished remembered. Not by itself what was true. So, what do I believe? On the blood, I lean toward the fool. I know how that sounds, but Mushroom's account is the one that explains the things that actually happened. The secrecy, the opportunity, and above all, the fury of an old man who beggared himself and rotted in a cell to save two dockyard boys. A man with no interest in women did not father 2 sons in 2 years. A father hiding his children from a jealous wife did. I think Corlys Velaryon looked at those silver-haired boys in his shipyard and saw his own face, and the histories let him keep the lie, because the lie was kinder to everyone. On his loyalty, I find the doubt thinner than the verdict. Yes, his brother carved that stone with a brother's hand, but the deed beneath it owes nothing to Alan. Whatever was in Addam's heart, pride, fury, the hunger to clear his name, it sent him not to the Queen's enemies, but against them. He had a dragon and the whole sky, and he spent both burning the men who had betrayed her. Call it loyalty, call it honor. They look the same from where I stand. He died doing the one thing no traitor ever does. And this is the image I cannot put down. A shipwright's bastard who began with nothing, who was given everything, and then accused of the worst thing, choosing, in a single night, with no one watching to reward him, to die clean rather than live a turncloak. In the year 138, his bones came home to Driftmark, and his brother carved above them a mouse for their mother, and a seahorse for the house that finally claimed him. And one word, loyal. I think the stone is right. So tell me this, was Addam of Hull a Velaryon by his father's blood? Or only by the name a grieving house chose to give him? Write it in the comments. I read every theory. And if you want to be here when we unravel the next mystery, subscribe to Westeros Within and join me for the next chapter. Word count 2050. Within the video 600, 2400, 12 to 16 imidim and target. Format compliance, cold open, 5 brutal visual lines. Canonical welcome verbatim. Episode, title, subtitle line with literal, placeholders, fast context beats, central question, flowing investigation of both mysteries, each with for and against. Softened certainty throughout. Said to, some have called. The evidence suggests Gildane declines to rule. Unreliable narrators surfaced. Merilda's motive, Mushroom's scurrility, Munkun, Eustace, Gildane refusing to choose, Alan's biased epitaph. So what do I believe? Verdict, locked ending verbatim. No TV HBO references, all lore drawn from the provided canon-vetted brief. Softened the 3 flagged attributions, said to accept, said to resemble. Dropped the modern reader consensus claim in favor of some read that as.